we should probably let some others in on our conversation. And the session that I was just
Mm.
in, it was our study skills and test taking strategies session
Okay.
for our
Yep.
incoming cohort. And so I invited them to this session as well. So hopefully we'll have some of those
Excellent.
attendees here. Oh, I see some of them already. So that's fantastic.
Good.
Well, hello to Lofa, to Ali and Anthony and Anu and Shelly and Cole. Kiora to Daryl and Eliza and Ellie and Grace and Hope and Huhana and Jijo. Bonjour to Jijo and Josh and Melina and Olu and Scott and Stephanie and Sharing and Whitney. Hi to Nathaniel and Joshua and Angelina. And hi to those of you joining us via recording. Welcome to the OUM community. Welcome to our session today, which is Meet the Director of Research. And we have the lovely, fantastic, incredibly knowledgeable Associate Professor Jenny Wilkinson here with us today. Thank you so much for being here and for taking some time out of your busy schedule of managing each and every one of our students' research projects at OUM, keeping everybody in line and on task to be here with us this evening. And
My
I think
my
you had
pleasure.
journal club or research club
Yes.
right before this as well.
Yes, we've just had Journal Club, so two really interesting speakers. So yeah, great.
Oh, that's fantastic. So I will have a series of questions for Associate Professor Jenny. And if you would like to ask any questions throughout the session, you're more than welcome to. Please go ahead and use the Q&A box. Or if you're feeling talkative today, feel free to raise your hand and we'll open the mic to you as well. So, Associate Professor Jenny, let's start like way back with little Jenny. What did little Jenny want to do when she grew up? What can you tell us about her?
Oh, I was thinking about this, and I'm not sure that I ever actually had a particular path in mind. I like to know things. So I guess that curiosity drives a lot of what I do. At school, I had thought I might be a pharmacist, but I did some work experience in a hospital pharmacy and thought, no, that's not for me. I'm interested in the drugs, but not really interested in the people side of things. Uh,
Love that. Love that for you, Jenny.
so went off and did a science degree, majors in physiology and pharmacology, and then, kind of fell into an academic position where you do research. Obviously, after my undergraduate degree, I did a PhD, looked at caffeine and embryo development, and then kind of went on to really just do the two things I like doing, research and teaching. So, fell into an academic position and have had many and varied experiences since then. So that's kind of the snapshot.
It's so easy, just show up one day in a PhD program, complete a PhD on embryo development and caffeine. Love to hear more about that. And then just suddenly end up at universities as a fantastic professor. But you make it seem easy, so that's fine too. Well, I want to know a little bit more about your research. Tell us about caffeine and embryo development. That's
Oh,
got some good medical connotations for sure.
yeah, yeah. Look, and I will say up front, I'm addicted to caffeine. Love coffee. Um, but as long as it's all in moderation, that's fine. I think that while my PhD was caffeine and embryo development, and that was really interesting, got got to do lots of different techniques, talk to lots of different people. The thing that actually drives it is that drug side of things. So after my PhD, I got an academic position, started doing more research, and my research kind of morphed into looking at complementary and alternative medicine. So the kind of flavor there is things that we take that we think are relatively innocuous that may actually have either beneficial biological effects or detrimental effects. And then that's kind of spilled over into looking at some of the public health and the other and the education side of things. So, that while kind of a little bit flippant about, my many and varied background, it is driven by that curiosity about things that we take that are not traditionally recognized as drugs or medications, but that clearly have a biological effect, and that clearly have societal and public health implications about why we take them, who takes them, all the behavioral stuff that's associated with that.
It's interesting because they aren't things that are like traditionally covered in allopathic medical school,
Mm,
but it's things that patients are taking and that they may ask about, and that physicians have to develop a knowledge about, even though they may not have the full understanding of what those complementary medicines are, especially if they're going
yeah.
to have interactions with some of the pharmaceuticals that are being prescribed. So I don't know, I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit, but like, have you ever thought about how we would be integrating some of your research into our education here at OUM?
Haven't thought about that. It's certainly been something I've been involved with elsewhere. I've been involved with teaching nurses and pharmacists and medical students elsewhere. And, you know, um, that thread of kind of the complementary, the alternative. And I should add in there that it's also traditional medicine. So we have multicultural student populations, we have multicultural patient, client, public populations, and there are cultural aspects to some of these traditional medicines that you don't want to ignore. And clinicians need to understand that, researchers need to understand that, and not just dismiss it because it's not part of what we might call mainstream or allopathic medicine. Um, Indigenous communities, people from other cultural backgrounds will all bring their own traditional medical practices. I've worked closely with um, people from traditional Chinese medicine backgrounds, and that's a really interesting kind of space because they look at health and well-being through a different lens that then perhaps what I kind of experience as a, you know, fairly Western Australian kind of person that doesn't have Chinese background or a traditional background in other cultural traditions.
I mean, it should be complementary, right? That's where that
Oh,
word,
absolutely.
like it's true.
Absolutely.
But we have like, medical doctors need to be working with practitioners of traditional Chinese medicine doctors, and with indigenous healers and others in order to make those types of things complementary to patients. But we're getting off topic here, but we could continue talking about this for on. I'm sure some of our participants today would have an interest in that as well. So maybe we'll take that offline with a discussion for others who want to be a part of that. But if that's not wasn't your interest in OUM, tell us a little bit about how you came to be a part of our community here at OUM, Jenny.
Um, I've held various positions over the years and, was really interested in getting back into something that gave me contact with students, but also research, and really like the kind of philosophical approach that OUM has to education and to how it interacts with students and staff. So, yeah, I've now been here not quite 6 months, and really enjoying it. And, working with the students is always interesting. There's projects that students are involved with are amazing. There's just, variety, not
Yeah.
just your stock standard, let's go and measure something, but we have people who are looking at things from economic perspectives, from we have someone who's looking at things from a more legal perspective, a medico-legal perspective. We have qualitative research, we have quantitative research, and just about every topic area that you could think about. So that's really exciting, and it's great to see the outcome of those studies. We see kind of 2 points in time, the proposal when people are talking about what they're going to do, and then the manuscript at the end where it's all come to fruition, and you get to see not just what was found, but how that's been interpreted. And that's the really important piece, that communication back to the clinical or the research community. That's why we do this. The whole point is sharing that knowledge.
I like how you mentioned that um, it was the philosophy of the university that brought you here. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to be a part of OUM as well. Like it really spoke to me about removing barriers for students to attend medical school and to realize their dreams of medicine. It's what gets me to my desk, gets me to my desk every day, gets me to Australia each year. Like that's what I live for, is for our students to be able to overcome those barriers and to realize their dreams. And I'm like so excited about that today, since we have some attendees today who are matriculating in January and going to be part of our next cohort. So I'm really glad that you and I would have never had the chance to meet probably ever, Jenny, because our research areas are different. Like we have we live across the world. We were talking before this session started how you're 37 degrees where you are, and you're in a heat wave, and there's snow squalls and it's -9 where I am. So I just love that we're across the world, getting to like reach out and be a part of this community
Mhm.
together for under this kind of philosophy. So thank you for bringing that up. And as you were talking about the some of the research projects of the students that you were enjoying because they were so varied, it made me think about particular students that I know are linked to those research projects. I'm like, oh yeah, because she's a lawyer
Mm.
in her past life, that she would be able to really be able to dig into a
Mm.
research project about medical legal issues. And so I love that research at OUM, doing research as a medical student really offers you the opportunity to personalize your education, where there aren't necessarily facets. Like you can't choose what you want to learn in the cardiovascular system, or when you go to your obs and gynae rotation, you can't say, well, I'm really interested in this and not over here. But with your research project, like each student gets to choose an area that's personally important to them, but that's also going to contribute to the wider clinical community and to
Mm.
wider patient communities. So I like that you mentioned that.
Yeah. And that's really important because, research is, I think it's fun, but it's sometimes not
Agree.
easy. It's sometimes not easy.
Agree.
So you don't want to get into something that's going to be a chore. So you have to have personal or professional or some kind of meaning or desire to do a particular project. So for students, and for anyone really, you draw on your knowledge, you draw on your experience. So if you come to medicine as a lawyer, as an engineer, as a pharmacist, then you're going to draw on what you know from that life to influence the sorts of projects that you might be interested in, but also the perspectives that you bring to that project. And that's really important because it's not a one size fits all. We all bring different perspectives to those projects, and that's how you get the most meaning out of that activity. So really, really important. Doesn't matter what your background is. You can be an accountant, doesn't matter. You can bring that experience to your research project and apply it to a health or a medical context. And that's what we want to help you do as you're moving through your research project.
Dr. Chinwe Okeke was just talking about we were doing a mock student success advisor session about how each student who's admitted to OUM is chosen because of their uniqueness and because we want them in particular.
Mm,
And it just makes me think about like what you were saying about the accountant, because we do have students that are accountants in past lives that such a unique offering for someone who has a background in accounting to then be a medical student and do a research project as a medical student, contribute into the fund of knowledge and into the clinical
mm.
sphere of research, a perspective that would not otherwise be there. That's a very unique offering that that person is able to provide. So I love that you see those things, Jenny. It's wonderful. Okay, well, answer me this question. Do all
Mhm.
students at OUM, do they have to, every student have to complete a research project?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and then
It's a requirement, but you also learn lots of really good skills along the way. You know?
okay, so why, so tell us about the why. Not only do they yes, they have to, but
Yeah.
why do we impose this requirement on our
Like,
students?
well, you can go down a very kind of, it's good for medical students. It helps you understand evidence-based practice, all of those sorts of things. And that's completely true. As a clinician, or even if you don't work actively as a clinician, you work in some other area where you're drawing on that knowledge. The ability to use and critique evidence is a really critical skill. But research also teaches you other things. It teaches you how to think logically, how to problem solve. Research is full of problems, um, but you learn resilience and you learn how to kind of think through those problems and come up with solutions. Not everything goes your way. And I think everybody who's ever done any research can kind of list off the unmitigated disasters because they didn't plan well or because something else happened. These are all really useful skills to use when you're going into any profession. So, problem solving, critical thinking, the ability to evaluate information. The world we live in is full of information, misinformation, disinformation, AI generated information, the whole lot. And they're like bucket loads of it. It's something like, I think I read somewhere, there are 8 million new papers published anticipated to be published this year. That's enormous. No one can read all of that. So you've got to have some skills and some strategies in place to help you dissect that huge bucket of information that's out there, work out what's sensible, what's not sensible, and then how you apply it. And the research skills you learn, even if you never do research again, will will really help you develop those much more transferable skills that you can then apply to daily life, if you like, or to your professional life. That this, yeah, just can't you cannot underestimate the value of those skills to just making you a more informed clinician and a more informed consumer of information.
Um, I've been working with researchers for the past 2 decades, and I've just never heard anybody talk about research like that before, but it's so true. Like, it really does give you a logical framework for approaching problems. And it's not just that it's logical too, it's like calm. Like you just know these are the steps to like complete it. And so for our students who are going to be in a lot of really difficult situations, both in their study, but then when they're seeing patients, like high stress, high yield situations, like having skills where you've had a lot of practice just following a logical flow of information, making logical decisions that are defendable, that have some basis in reality and not in junk science, like it makes a huge difference
Mm.
to not only to that person and their ability to do that day in and day out, but to each and every patient that they're going to serve. I've never heard somebody talk about research that way before, Jenny, but Like I need to get, I need to send Becky over to do a little quote so she can put that on the website or something about that.
I think it also stops you jumping to conclusions. We all do it. We all
Yeah.
jump to conclusions.
Yeah.
And I think something that doing research really helps you, it doesn't train it out of you because we all do it, but it helps you stop and think, what is the evidence? And can I interrogate the evidence in a way that is justifiable? You know, can it,
Yeah.
or should I just believe this because somebody important said it? No? I kind of think I have a very strong skeptic in me. Um, I want to know what the evidence is. And I think research gives you a framework to tackle those questions, to not jump to conclusions, and to really try and look at things in a common sense and I think a calm way if you can.
Yeah. I like that. And I like to know what's like real and not real. Cause like, I'm old enough where I like look at AI things and I'm not sure if it's like real or an AI thing. But like research does give you a framework for like what is real, what does the evidence say, and what doesn't. So I appreciate that, Jenny. Okay. So these are pretty like strong skills to have, and they take time to develop. But do OUM students have to already have a research background when they start in order to hone these skills when they get here? Like, do we help them out? Where are people's levels? Where do they need to be when they start medical school in terms of their research skill set?
Yeah. Look, we don't assume that you know anything, but honestly, most people have some research skills, even if it's the kind of very almost naive research skills that they use when they buy a new computer or they buy a new car. You weigh up the pros and cons, you look at the information, and you kind of approach it in that way. What we do when we think about a research project is take those kind of ideas about planning and looking at the evidence and then coming to a decision based on that evidence and actually put it into a more formal framework. So we will help students with some foundations of research methods, understand how to build good quality research questions, how to understand the ethical and the other kind of requirements around doing research, what you need to do to analyze your information. Um, and then you work with a research advisor to actually develop your own project. And that's the bit where you get quite a bit of freedom and quite a bit of license to do what you want to do. Now, often students, um, and students are not unique in this, you come to a project and think, oh, I'm going to cure the world. I'm going to answer this huge big question. That's 5 PhDs and 20 years worth of work. So what your research advisor does is help you narrow that down to something that is self-contained, doesn't have too much uncertainty in it. Uncertainty is good, but you don't want too much of it so that you get derailed. And they help you craft that project so that it's got a really strong research question that your study design allows you to answer that research question and that there aren't any um, major methodological or perhaps ethical issues that you need to be aware of up front. Now, some of those you can tackle, some of them just mean you need to do a bit of a modification of your project. But we're here to guide students through that. And we'll guide them through that process, through getting all the approvals, doing the project, and then writing it up. And you can also, students also draw on their networks either from before, when they weren't a medical student,
Four
um,
times.
yeah, the before life, but also draw on the networks that they have as they go into clinical rotations, as they meet other people, as they work with mentors and other staff. All of those people help to, if you like, test the ideas that you've got in a research kind of sense. And the aim is to take all of that and kind of craft it into something sensible that can then be done as a research project.
Tell us a little bit more about this research advisor person. Do people have to find their own research advisor? Is that something we provide? What's the skill set of that person?
Ah, we will provide it. So our research advisors are people who have experience in research. They've got lots of experience in helping students. So they will be a bit of a sounding board for students. And what happens is that when you're ready to do your project, either myself or the Deputy Director of Research will have a chat with you and say, well, what's the broad area that you're interested in? And it doesn't have to be really specific. It can be as broad as knee pain or something really broad. Talk a little bit about that. And then based on that information, we will assign a research advisor who's got some skills and experience in that space. You then work with them over the course of the research project. They'll help you refine the project. They'll also help you write your prospectus or your proposal and then kind of proceed through the project. Um, the contact that you have with them is really up to you and the research advisor. First meetings like this, you have a face-to-face, as far as possible, meeting with them, get to know them. And then after that, you can have either Zoom meetings or you can by email, but it's just keeping in contact and they're there to really help you craft your proposal. One thing I will say right up front, which is a challenge for some students, is that unlike perhaps in previous study where you might have done an assignment, you get your topic, you do your assignment, you might read over it once or twice, hand it in, done and dusted. Research is almost the complete opposite. You have these never-ending cycles of feedback. And the reason I say it up front is that some people find that a little bit challenging because they want something that's a lot more concrete and a lot more set. But the process of research and the process of working with your research advisor is that you'll have these iterative cycles of feedback. And the feedback is to clarify, to strengthen, to improve your work, rather than it just being a topic you write about, look over it and submit it and it's done. So it's kind of plant that seed in the back of your mind that research is kind of this iterative feedback process. Expect it, it'll come. It's good. Go with the flow.
You did use the word that research develops a skill of resiliency earlier on in this session, and that made me think of this feedback process that it
Mm,
actually does teach resiliency. It's very tough
mm,
to go through those cycles of feedback. It is something that you will learn to not take personally, which is a great skill also when
mm,
you get that feedback. You're not getting feedback on your work, you're getting feedback on the research, right? And so you will have to learn to take in feedback even when you don't want it, even when you don't necessarily agree with it, even when you have other things that you have to do, you will still learn to how to use that constructively and move yourself forward, which is an incredible skill for resiliency and for a medical student, because medical students have those kinds of challenges all the time where they're having to take in a lot of information that they don't maybe necessarily want or don't want. Maybe they've had a setback in exams or in clinical rotations, or they've gotten some feedback in person during their clinical rotations, which they shouldn't take personally. They need to use it to improve their work, come back the next day better prepared. So research is excellent for that resilience, or sorry, feedback during
yeah.
research is excellent for that resiliency that you were talking about
I will
earlier.
also add there that another piece of it is you don't actually have to agree with the feedback. You can disagree with feedback, and the skill that you learn is justifying why you don't agree with the feedback.
Yeah.
And that's also a really important skill. Take the emotion out of it, take your kind of reaction to feedback that might seem personal and think about it from an objective point of view. Those are really hard skills to learn, but they're really valuable in the long run.
Yeah, that's one of the professionalism skills that we teach is about how not to take things personally, how to take it as to in order to move forward, how to push back
Mhm.
on something that you don't agree with, but still remain in a professional capacity, not in a personal capacity. Okay, we have a couple of submitted questions,
Oh, good.
and we have some questions in our Q&A. So let's handle those for now, Associate Professor Jenny. Okay, so I have a submitted question which says, I've already completed research and published an article. Can I use this to meet my research requirement at OUM?
Fantastic that you've got some research experience. Unfortunately, you can't use that for your research requirement. We require that you do the research while you're enrolled as a student, and also while you're enrolled in the research project unit. Having said that, having had some experience in doing research, you might like to think about a project which extends that research or uses some of the skills you've already learned. Alternatively, some students who are in that situation decide to learn an entirely different skill set so that they really broaden the research kind of skills that they can bring to any problem.
Thanks. Okay, our second submitted question is, does my research project have to be about Samoa?
No. If it's about Samoa, that's fantastic, but it doesn't have to be. It can be about your local community. We have a lot of students who are from very diverse communities, and there might be a research question that is related to where you are, or it could just be a general research question. We do, for example, have some students in Australia who are looking at research questions that involve Indigenous communities because that's their local community and that's important to them in their situation. We also have students who do projects while they're in Samoa. That's also fantastic. I guess the bottom line is no, you don't have to do it in Samoa. If you want to, that's great. Otherwise, we will help you craft a project appropriate to your interests in your area.
They've got options.
Absolutely.
Okay, we have some questions in the Q&A box. Hi again, Mesh. So Mesh asks, thanks, Professor Jenny, for this session. I'm curious to know, with the evolution of technology, how can AI help a medical student doing research?
Oh, I think that's a really, really good question. Um, AI is moving so fast, and there are so many tools that can help you do research. So there are AI-driven tools that can help you do your research, your literature search, that can help you look for connections in the literature that, if you're doing it manually, you probably wouldn't be able to do. There are also AI tools that help with analysis and help speed up some of the what I call grunt work, the administrative work that's associated with those projects. It can also help you write and to brainstorm ideas. I think the really important thing is to keep remembering that if you use these tools, and inevitably you will, some or all, whatever, ultimately you are responsible for the output. The AI is just a tool, and you, as the human involved, need to bring critical analysis skills, common sense, all of those kind of really good human skills to it to make sure that what AI is producing or any other tool is producing on its face looks sensible, but also when you delve into it, actually is true and correct. Um, I suspect that what I say about AI today will be completely different to when you start your research project. It is moving so fast, and there are so many amazing things it can do. But just don't ever forget that behind it is a computer and a computer algorithm. It is not human, and you will always have to be the human taking responsibility for that work.
Yeah, it's never going to be you. It's never going to be mesh, right? Like it's never going to have the
Never.
skills that mesh has, the perspective that mesh has, the drive that mesh has to get that research done. So we'll never be able to replace mesh as a human, but maybe it can help mesh out with some of
Oh,
the
it
more menial tasks.
certainly can help with a lot of tasks. I even look back to when I did my PhD, um, pre-internet, ages me. We would have to go to the library every week and sit down with a physical copy of the journal to find the articles that we wanted. Move forward a few years, you've got databases that you just sit at your desk and find it. AI now, you sit at your desk and you ask it, find me the research gaps in this topic area. It's an evolution of tools, but never forget that you need to bring the human to it. They are
Yeah.
just tools.
Maybe it's helpful to like get a wide swath of what things look like,
Yeah,
but you'll have to be the digger.
yeah.
Okay, Anonymous would like to know, is there a specific style of research design we're supposed to use? And can you share the rough word count range? Thank you.
Uh, Hard to answer because there is no, I was going to say there's no limit to what you can do. That's not quite right. Um, but in terms of research approaches, whether you want to do quantitative, so whether you want to do a survey or some kind of retrospective analysis, absolutely fine. If you want to do a qualitative study of some description, if you want to do document content analysis, you can do that. If you want to do a mixed methods project, that's also fine. All we ask is that it's original research, so that needs to be generating new knowledge. And in terms of the write-up, you write it up as a publishable manuscript. So there's no word limit, but you'd be probably looking at something that is, I don't know, 2.5 to 5,000 words. But it's really variable based on how concisely you write, but also the nature of the project. If you're doing a qualitative project which has a lot of quotes and a lot of really in-depth analysis about what people are saying, it's going to be slightly longer than if you had a retrospective study where the numerical data was quite short and sweet, and you then just had kind of introduction and discussion to write about. So it's variable. Your research advisor will help make sure that you're not going too far out of the kind of norms. But there, as I said, it is quite flexible and there's quite a lot of latitude in what you can do.
Okay, great. Because Olu had also asked what's the expected word count for the final thesis. So there's a range. The
Yeah,
content is more important than length. Is that
yeah,
what we should get from it? Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. And then Nathaniel would like to know if we're in the USA and attend an international medical school, will this affect the IRB? I think they mean Institutional Research Board, perhaps.
Okay, so in terms of your research project and the approvals that you need, the first approval that you get is from the OUM Research Committee, and they're really essentially looking at the scientific or the academic merit of the project. Once it gets through that, then it will go to the OUM Ethics Committee, and they look at the ethical issues associated with your project. If you're doing a project at a site outside OUM, which many students are, a hospital, a clinic, a youth centre, wherever, then they may also have some approvals you need to go through. So that might be what we just call a site approval, which is just like the manager of the site says, yes, I'm going to write a letter and say that you can have access to this data, or I'm approving you to come and stand in the clinic and hand out surveys. Or you might be at a hospital or some other site where a more formal ethics approval is required. So maybe you work for an ambulance service, maybe you work for a hospital, and in that case, you'd go through their institutional ethics committee, so an IRB, or in Australia, it's a HREC. Same thing, they're essentially an ethics committee. You do that after you get the OUM ethics approval, um, and the OUM ethics approval is kind of provisional until you get that final approval. So it's the nature of research projects that often you need multiple approvals, and we will help step you through that to make sure you're going to the right kind of committee to get your approvals.
Well, there's really good questions coming in from this group. Thanks so much. Okay, Anonymous wants to know, can we do meta research or integrity reviews? And then they have a second question, do we need to publish or submit to a journal?
Um, you need to do original research, so a systematic review and a meta-analysis are not included because they're not considered primary research. Um, Not quite sure what you mean by an integrity review. Happy
I
to
wasn't sure about that either.
yeah.
Maybe they can
Um,
provide some further information.
yeah,
But as long as it's primary research, right? We
as long
would.
as it's primary research, happy. Um, so the second part
Do we
was,
need to publish or
oh, I
submit
need to
to a
publish.
journal?
Yeah. No, you don't need to publish. You need to produce output which is publishable, so of a publishable quality. Um, And now I know that there's no kind of single standard of publishable quality, lots of different journals. So we have a marking rubric that we share with you that says this is the standard we want you to get to. If you then wish to publish, fantastic. And we will do what we can to help you navigate that process. The reason why we don't require that you publish your research is that can be quite a lengthy process, and we don't want to hold up your graduation or anything else because it's stuck in a journal review cycle that is taking 18 months or more. So we will mark it internally, mark it to the standard we feel is publishable, and then if you wish to publish, you can.
And Anonymous, which I'm not sure if it's the same Anonymous or someone else. Either way, they would like to know, where can we get access to the published research done by former students, please?
It's on the website. And I don't know what the name of it is. Nicolette might know off the top of her
There
head.
is a section called research on
Yes,
oum.edu.ws where you can find
yes,
the I don't know, I don't know if it has the full reference. I think
yes, it
so.
does. It
And then the
does.
link to the
Yeah,
study. Yeah.
yeah. So those that have been published are there. Um, and I know they're doing some work on just revamping that site a little bit. So revisit, even if you've been to it, revisit again later. And we also try and update when new material is published.
Whitney would like to know, is it one research project or can you do more? Oh, I like your style, Whitney.
Um, the more the merrier, however. That's a slightly flippant response. You're only required to do one. If you want to do more, yes, it's great. I think you need to be realistic though. Um, the next couple of years are going to be busy, and getting one research project done to a high quality is often kind of all you can fit in around all the other things. So my advice would be focus on one, make sure you do a really good job of that, and then you've got some skills to, once you have graduated, to then launch into more projects, um, and perhaps diversify your research interests at that stage as well.
Yeah, I do know we have students who've published like additional
Mm,
projects after they've left or have
yeah.
taken some of the research and then published it
Mm,
afterwards. But I can only think of one student that has had multiple research projects published during their
mm.
time, and they had a previous research background as well.
Mhm.
Anthony would like to know, what is the expected duration for the research? That's a good question. And can we start any groundwork prior to commencing the course? Okay, so expected duration for the research.
Okay, expected duration. It's a bit hard, it's hard to give an answer because it's so variable. Essentially, you do a subject which is called Ethics and Methods in Research. Once you've done that, you're then enrolled into the research project unit, and you can start the substantive part of your research at that point. That unit goes for as long as it takes you to do the research project. Um, and you can't graduate until you've finished the research project. So for some students, it's like a couple of months. They do it really quickly just because of the nature of their project or the time that they've got available. Other students, it takes a lot longer. You've really just got a start point and an end point. And if you finish sooner than that, that's great, but you can't finish until it's all done.
Okay. Can
And the second
students,
part,
oh, can they start any groundwork prior to commencing?
absolutely. Um, the and the best groundwork that I would recommend is not to get too caught up with what the actual project is, but do some reading. Think about the things that interest you. What are the questions that you have from your pre-medical school life or that have cropped up in the last little while? And start to do some reading around those areas. Google Scholar, PubMed as databases to search, or just do a Google search or whatever your favorite, internet search engine is, and just read. Get a sense of what is out there and what other people have done, because that's probably, I think, the most important part. The doing the project is actually kind of, once you've got to that point, is almost relatively easy. It's the all the prep work that is takes a while. And so the prep work includes understanding the literature in that field. And so you've got to do some reading and you've got to think about the reading and come back to papers, because as you read more, you'll start to question things that you had read earlier. So if you want to get started, read, search the internet, sit with journals, just read.
I think that's really excellent advice, because one of the things that I see um, tripping up students or holding them back is just getting started because their minds are so pulled in so many directions already that kind of approaching a big sphere of content in a particular area and trying to like pull out some salient spaces in that or gaps in that research can be really challenging. So that's probably where, you know, part of my role, Associate Professor Jenny is aware, and maybe many of you are aware too, is to help students who may be struggling at various points in their degree. So I would say most of the time when I'm dealing with anyone struggling with research, it's not because they're struggling with like doing their research or writing up their research or even dealing with the feedback. The point where most students are having trouble with their research is getting the research started, coming to their research question. And so they delay unnecessarily. They get and then they get kind of stuck at a point in their degree where they need to have certain milestones completed for research. So I think that's really excellent advice to this question that Anthony had asked about if there's something that they should do to kind of get prepared, because
You've
that's
got
the part where I see students get stopped.
you've got plenty of time before you have to make some really hard decisions about what project you need to do. Allow yourself to go down the rabbit holes. You know, read widely. Read things that you might not have ever read before and don't think are relevant, because they all kind of just percolate away in your head and will help you focus down the track.
Um, So we were talking, just like briefly, you had
Mm.
mentioned that you had just come from Journal Club when we started
Yes.
this session. And now that's making me think about that because you're saying, oh, to read research and kind of get started. But we also have these sessions available, which are Journal Club and Research Club, where they could kind of dig into some things too. So can you tell our attendees today a little bit about what is Journal Club and what is Research Club at OUM?
Okay. Um, Research Club and Journal Club are two ways for you to hear about research. So, Journal Club is where one or two students each week will present a an analysis of a recent publication. So, the publication is from the last 2 years, needs to be primary research. They will have spent some time reading and analysing the work, and they then bring that to the group and share that research. And the sharing is not just about the paper. Students will often tell us about why that paper is important to them. What thing has attracted them to that particular study, and then also what are the strengths and weaknesses that they saw in the study. We then have some opportunity for discussion. So there are mostly students, but there are also some members of the academic staff who attend, and we just, ask questions. It's part of that interrogating the literature. Um, you, well, you, Students normally start doing, you can attend Journal Club at any time, but you normally start kind of thinking about presenting maybe after about 6 months or so. Once you've got some kind of runs on the board, you're starting to understand research a little bit, then you need to do it. Now, there are some requirements. You do need to present at least once in your entire degree. You need to attend 30 journal clubs before you go into clinical rotations, and you need to attend 50 overall. That requirement might sound like a lot, but we run them every week. So there's lots of opportunity to attend. Research Club is slightly different in that Research Club is not every week, although we've been having them every week so far. And that's where students who are up to the stage of having their project approved come and tell us about the project they're going to do. So it's their proposal seminar, in a sense, for those who have done research elsewhere. Again, they're advertised on the announcements. You'll get information about when they're on. Come along, ask questions. No question is too silly. And, the more people we have and the more involvement we have from the audience members in both of those activities, the better the activities are.
Yeah, it'll be great to have this group maybe come to Journal Club and
Yeah.
Research Club because they're asking a lot of good questions in our chat today. We have another from Anonymous, and I this is like $1 million question for me, so I'm interested in your answer too. They want to know, how do we learn to critique and evaluate research literature?
Oh, there's such good questions. Um, I think there's kind of a formal way you can do it. There are checklists and things that you can use to kind of, if you like, give you a framework. And we share those with students. The other thing is just to kind of develop an inquiring mind, if you like. Listen to other people and the things that they critique. Come along to Journal Club and listen to the things that I ask about, that other students ask about, and, try and develop that mindset yourself. It it requires you to be slightly skeptical about everything. Um, Not that you distrust everything you hear, but you just need to kind of question what it is. It's a skill. You won't get it right the first time, even if you're using a checklist, because you'll kind of go, oh, have they done this test? Have they done that test? Where are the authors from? Have they declared their funding, etc.? I would say to get better at it and to really develop that skill, do it. Just do it. Read, critique, think about what you're reading, ask the questions, come along to the discussions, ask questions, listen to what other people are asking, and you'll find over time that you move from just you know, trusting what the written word says to going, oh, well, they didn't say that. Oh, how do they know that? It just you just that doesn't marry up. So practice. I don't think there's any other way to do it than practice. Come along, practice yourself, question what you're reading. Um, yeah, question.
Just jump in, it'll be fun.
It is.
It's fun. Anthony wants to know, and I like this question a lot too. Considering the study, I mean, all the questions have been
Mm.
great, but anyhow, considering the study demand for the medical course, what would be the one piece of advice to make the research topics simple and easily achievable? It's another $1 million question.
I'd say do something you're interested in because then you'll want to stick with it. The other thing I would say is once you start, don't stop. So what we sometimes see is students stop start. Yeah. I developed my research question, done my study design. Oh, something else has come up. I'm going to drop it for 3 months. 3 months' time, you can't remember. I can't remember what I did last week. You've got no hope of remembering from 3 months ago. So it's inevitable that other things will crop up. So the thing I would say is, you know, don't drop it entirely. Keep it ticking along in the background. Keep it in your head. Set yourself some deadlines if you need to. Use the variety of tools that kind of keep you engaged with the literature, whether it's the automatic emails from journals that tell you what's been published. Keep in that mindset so that you keep moving along because it is inevitable that you'll have peaks and troughs in your activity. If you get really stuck, or even if you think you're getting stuck, ask for help because it's easier to sort these problems out or to give you ideas about how to move forward early rather than late when there may be time pressures and other things that are more difficult to work around.
I really feel like in our logo, this little banner here needs to say, OUM, ask for help because there's always help available.
Yeah,
You just have to ask for it.
yeah.
As we close our session today, Associate Professor Jenny, do you have any advice or recommendations to students for balancing their studies and research and professional and personal commitments in medical school? What would you say to students about that?
Look, I think it's individual. Um, we sometimes get that balance right, and sometimes we don't. I would say don't beat yourself up about it if you don't get the balance right. You learn, ask for help. If, so 1 week is a bit crazy and you don't get to do everything you needed to do. Um, 3 weeks of that craziness, you need to ask for help. We will help you to try and sort through the prioritization and, if need be, some additional support that you might need to juggle everything. But I would say on a day-to-day basis, don't be too hard on yourself. Don't put everything, 100% of your effort into study and 0% into life. You've got to mix it all together. You can't just put a stop on life while you're doing other things. It doesn't happen that way. You'll get burnout. So yeah, I said balance, balance. Don't beat yourself up about it. Ask for help.
Thank you so much, Associate Professor Jenny. I really appreciate your time. And this was just a really fun conversation to have with me. And for me, in all honesty, and I really appreciate each and every one of you who attended live today and the questions that many of you asked. If you didn't get a chance to ask your question today, or if you have a question that just pops into your mind after our session today, feel free to reach out to your admissions counselor and they will either have that answer ready and available to you. I cannot believe that amount of info that our admissions counselors are able to keep in mind, or they'll direct you to someone at the university who's able to answer your question directly. So we really appreciate you joining us at the OUM community today, and we look forward to seeing you at our session at the end of the month around balancing health and in medicine. That I'll be giving just before the university break for the year. And for those of you who are part of the 2601 January cohort, we're looking forward to welcoming you into the university this January. And for those of you who've yet to meet our admissions counselors, I highly recommend you reach out and have a chance to meet Ms. Shanda and Ms. Camille, who are lovely and wonderful resources available to and answer all of your questions and meet your needs for learning more about OUM. So thanks so much for being here, everyone. Thank you so much again, Associate Professor Jenny. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, everyone. It was lovely to meet all of you virtually. And if you have any questions, please reach out.
Thanks. Bye for now. Bye bye.
Bye.